Is there a secret formula to ranking up in Valorant? Why don't you ask this guy?
Can I have the secret formula? No! Okay.
Sorry, you heard the man. While there may not be a secret formula, there are some things that we can learn from a less experienced player compared to a more experienced player. And that's just what we're gonna do in this video. Compare my fairly inexperienced girlfriend with a little over 24 hours of playtime and Iron 3 rank to me, who has roughly 600 hours of playtime with a current rank of Gold 2 and a high of Plat 3. With the backgrounds established, let's talk about what you need to do if you're looking to rank up in Valorant. The first step, of course, is to subscribe so you never miss an opportunity to know the ins and outs of Valorant again. I'm chill and let's get into it. Let's start with Greish's perspective. Now, if you think I'm going to go easy on her because she's my girlfriend, you would be right, and I'm definitely not being forced to say this right now. We'll be going over some key moments from a game we played on Fracture together. After that, we can break down the good and bad and then take a look at my perspective. In round 2, we can see Greiish use her dart to get info on the enemy team. The problem here is that she shot it too low and didn't really charge it up enough. At lower ranks, not charging fully won't really matter as much because the enemies have a harder time reacting and shooting the dart. However, since the dart is low, the brim smoke eats the dart, rendering it basically useless unless there happened to be a defender walking in the smoke at that moment. Shooting the dart high up and fully charging makes it really difficult for the defenders to destroy it and has the potential to see more of the site. In this clip, Greiish seems to be a little bit lost in the beginning and the crosshair placement is all over the place. They're also very low on time. They attempt to plant but die in the process. Greish's positioning here isn't terrible because she has a crossfire on anyone attempting to push to site, but she's not in the best spot to trade kills with her teammates. Fortunately, she makes the right decision by saving her phantom at the end of the round. Here's a good moment where Greiish demonstrates some good target acquisition and reaction time. This first kill on Chamber isn't bad, although she does peek a little too slowly. You generally don't want to walk peek around corners because it makes it easier for the enemy to kill you. She also has a habit of ADSing, but I don't really blame her since she's used to Call of Duty. ADSing can be bad because it slows down movement, making it easier for enemies to react if they're holding her angle. Luckily, Chamber misses and she gets the kill. She also uses her dart against the far wall. Her teammate comms that Omen is beneath her and she knows to look behind, catching the Omen off guard for the second kill. Now she's in a 1v1. She spots the Jet and actually has a solid flick onto her. The Jet makes a mistake of peeking her again and Greiish capitalizes on it. Pretty nice clutch. Here's a great example of a mistake that I see a lot of lower rank players making. The attackers have a great push onto site by pinching with 3 players going A main and 2 players going dish. We have the info on Sage, and on dish, Killjoy gets a pick on the Omen. The Sage that was revealed in A main gets pinched perfectly. While the 3 players in A main put pressure on Sage, she tries to back up onto site and fall back, but the dish players are there to finish the job. Here's where Greiish makes her mistake. Granted, this is a fairly negligible mistake, but could have been avoided if she stayed with her team in A main. She pushes through door, which makes a loud audio cue alerting the KO playing in ropes. She sees KO hit the op shot on Killjoy and decides to hold the angle. This isn't necessarily the wrong decision, but it ends up costing her since the KO flashes and gets the pick. There are 3 main options she had in this situation to give herself a better chance of surviving or getting the kill on KO. 1, she stays A main with her team and provides support for the flank and watch door. 2, if she decides to push through door, knowing the KO is ropes, she can move along the close left wall and move up rope to surprise the KO, or wait underneath for him to jump out and get a free pick. 3, she plays the same position shown in the clip and reacts to the KO flash by turning away and resetting her aim. Unfortunately, she doesn't look away, gets flashed, and dies. Luckily, the round ends in a win, but the attackers ended up having the same numbers, which could have gone either way. Greish's mistake could have cost the team the round here if things didn't go well during post-play. On to the final clip. Omen is spotted in B main and is the last player. It is assumed at this point that Omen has the bomb. Greiish moves up and shock darts Cubby, which is an excellent way to get damage on the Omen, who could be low on health. Since Omen isn't seen by B anymore, it is assumed he ran A to plant. Greiish slowly moves towards spawn, but knows the Omen could ult anywhere at this point. Brim clears most of B main and the Omen ults. Greiish holds her position until the ult finishes and then hears the Omen planting and moves towards the site to surprise him after he plants. The unsuspecting Omen runs back towards back of site and Greiish gets an easy pick. This is perfectly played. Never assume that an enemy is rotating, and having one anchor on a site while the team rotates is a great way to defend. Alright, so let's talk about some of the things that Greiish could work on based on what we saw this game. Looking at economy, Greiish tends to force buy most rounds, which isn't the best thing to do, especially with Sova, because his abilities hold a lot of value by gaining info for the team. In most situations for Sova players, having a dart and a drone during save or eco rounds is ideal when possible. Another thing that causes her to make mistakes is her indecisiveness. Having an idea in mind or even just following or playing with your teammates can help reduce the impact of her indecision and can give her an idea of what to do based on what her teammates are doing. In terms of mechanics and aim, Greiish needs to work on crosshair placement. Understanding where your enemies may come from is a huge part of Valorant, and mastering crosshair placement can get you very far without really needing to have good aim. Learning how to hipfire aim is another major aspect towards improvement. Greiish ADSing for most kills can work in lower ranks, but it has its drawbacks, which include slower rate of fire and reduced movement speed. She's still getting used to gun mechanics as a new player, so this can be worked on over time. When looking at her ability usage, her dart is one of the strongest abilities in the game, and learning common dart spots can help her and her teammates tremendously. Finally, counter strafing. Greiish hasn't learned this mechanic quite yet, so just getting used to stopping and shooting is good for now. Movement is important in this game, and understanding the fundamentals early on can help a lot as she improves. Okay, that may have seemed like a lot of bad, but it's all in the name of improvement. Let's talk about some of the good things she did. Her reaction speed and target acquisition is pretty solid. Tightening up those aiming mechanics is the next step to improving overall aim. Her understanding of Sova's dart is also decent, and the more she practices with it and understands the spots, the better she'll be. She's also competent with audio and listens to her teammates' comms. Trusting your teammates can be a challenge sometimes in Valorant, but it's generally a good thing to react to their comms. Heading on over to my perspective now, we'll take a look at round 9. This will turn into a 1v3 after Greiish loses her gunfight. Knowing the enemy can easily kill me from multiple angles, I decide to reposition by heading through tunnel. I do this to make the enemy think I'm rotating to A. They take the bait and I head into heaven to clear that spot and get in a plant that's fairly challenging to defuse since it's out in the open. As I'm planting, I hear the jet B main and hold the angle. After the kill, I head back to heaven, which is the safest and most advantageous position in this situation. I also want to make sure no one is coming from the other side. The Omen ults and I decide to use my haunt as the footsteps get closer to me. The haunt goes out a little late, but luckily the Omen smokes as the KO appears, allowing me to easily isolate the 1v1. I have my ult and decide to use it to give me a huge advantage. I hear the audio cue that my Omen was hit with my ult, so I know he's somewhere on site or near it. Since the ult deafens enemies, I use this opportunity to flank very quickly. Lucky for me, the Omen gave up and waits way too long to defuse, giving me an easy W. Either that or he just didn't realize how fast the bomb was going to explode because of the deafen mechanic. This next round starts with a good opening pick on the chamber. I throw a haunt over top to spot anyone close to canteen. Haunt is taken out right away, so I know another agent is by sight. Jet smokes from sight and I back off a bit to allow my teammates to push forward. At this point, I feel that ulting sight could get us in quickly. I make sure to cover all of sight with the ult to guarantee anyone playing there and heaven is hit. The ult marks 2 and I follow it up with a prowler to help my teammates enter sight. Unfortunately, things go south very quickly and KO's ult comes out as our planter gets picked. Now we're at a disadvantage. I decide to switch to a rifle because opping in this situation is dangerous and I can't be as useful to my team that way. I sadly get flanked from our spawn. This is my fault and I should have recognized this could have happened sooner. Plus, our Killjoy didn't have a turret prepared for the flank and the alarm bot was a little too far to reveal the enemy flanker. Next time I can either tell the Killjoy to place a turret down to watch flank or keep an eye on it myself. Moving over to round 15, since I have 2 prowlers, on defense I can use one to clear out dish and grab orb nearly every round. This also gives my team pretty useful early info on the attacker's position by ruling out one possible area, at least early on. On retake, I moved into canteen and had good crosshair placement, which Sage walked right into. While keeping composure and not shooting too quick, I lined up the shot on Omen and helped my teammate finish off the last kill. In the beginning of round 19, I throw out my prowler to get info and grab orb. I look at my minimap and see 3 coming A main. At this point, I mistakenly believed that the whole team was pushing through A main. I see Greiish playing in a pretty high risk angle and try to support her by letting her know that they know she may be there due to the KO knife. I throw my haunt to support and distract the enemy from her position. Unfortunately, the enemy Omen smokes off A main, making it more challenging for me to assist her. So in a bit of a desperate attempt, I try spraying through the smoke. I throw my prowler to try to blind them before she's seen, but she goes down. Luckily, she got a couple picks, which is huge. Unlucky for me, the enemy chamber was on the flank. My mistake here was not being aware of a possible flank because I assumed all 5 went A main when that was clearly not the case. I wanted to point out this round specifically because although I did a bunch of things right, all it really takes is one mistake to potentially turn the tide of the round. To fix this, I could have sent out my prowler without controlling it and 180'd to check my flank, giving me a fighting chance. Tunnel vision can happen a lot in in Valorant, and it's important to keep your head on a swivel. Lucky for us, the enemy had an AFK. So now let's go over the good and the bad. In terms of aim mechanics, I usually do pretty well and have a good understanding of crosshair placement and confidence in my shot. I'm not the most consistent, but I can hold my own, especially in the lower ranks. I main Fade at this point and have a full understanding of what each of her abilities does, how they work together, and when to use them to give my teammates opportunities. I'm pretty comfortable with all the maps and know the callouts, so I can relay info to my team with good comms most of the time. So on to some of the bad things. Some things I can work on are awareness during hectic or intense situations. Since Fracture has a lot of entrances to sight, it can be easier to get flanked. Sometimes I'll also get over eager and push without my teammates. Opping with Fade on attack isn't necessarily the best idea, but can work in some situations. The op doesn't synergize well with her close range abilities, so sometimes using an op on Fade can be detrimental. I will also sometimes use abilities in risky situations when I should focus more on keeping my gun ready to fight. Now we can compare the two players and see what we can learn. When first starting out the game, especially with no prior knowledge of tactical FPS titles like CSGO, Greiish is basically starting from zero. The main things to focus on here are economy, the mechanics of each gun, how movement affects aim, and positioning. There's a lot more basics to go over, but I think these are relatively important. Learning one agent is a good place to start and is exactly what Greiish is doing. Sova is a great agent to play when starting out because of his carry potential and his abilities work well with the team. He's also pretty fun to play. Mastering the basics of the game is what you want to put most of your focus into early on. After that, you can develop a more complex and in-depth understanding of the game, like calling rotations, isolating gunfights, and playing with and off of your teammates. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know down in the comments if you like this kind of video and what topics you want me to cover in the future. Don't forget to drop a like if you learned something new, subscribe so you never miss the next guide, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.